I'm currently sat in the all-new Juke Hybrid, which starts from £27,000. If you go up the trim levels, you'll be splashing out roughly £30,000, and that is without options. In this video, we're going to be exploring what the new Juke Hybrid offers and to see if it's actually worth its price tag. So let's start off and talk about what makes this a hybrid. Well, here you have got a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated engine at the front of the vehicle. You then have a 1.2 kilowatt hour battery pack that's found in the boot, and then you've also got a motor. Now when combined, they output 105 kilowatts of power. That equates to around 141 horsepower, and then you have got 205 newton meters of torque, and that is namely due to its electrified portion. Now via RaceLogic's VBox Sport, we had it tested from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 9.76 seconds, which should certainly suffice for the target market of the Juke Hybrid. As for its top speed, it's rated at 103 miles an hour, and that should certainly be okay if you're driving around in the UK or most European countries, but of course isn't unrestricted, and for those people who live on the German Autobahn, they might be left a little bit disappointed. Now, while all of that might be important to some individuals, the most important factor for us is the hybrid powertrain and in terms of what it does in terms of fuel efficiency. Well, in our mixed driving test, which has been relatively short on the UK first drive, we are netting 35 to 40 miles per gallon, which isn't exactly to be shouting about, but of course that is with some spirited driving and while dialed into the sport mode as well, so you might attain a lower or indeed a higher figure depending on where and how you drive. Now here you do have a 46 litre tank, so therefore if you are going on a single excursion, you should be able to go for roughly 350 miles without actually having to stop, which is one of the key selling points of a hybrid vehicle over a fully electrified vehicle. Now on the subject of electrification, the Juke Hybrid does have the e-pedal mode, and that can be enabled or disabled by pressing a button found on the center console. It's very easy to initiate and is a mode that we absolutely love, because when you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, it does start decelerating the vehicle relatively quickly, but it will not come to a complete standstill and will rather crawl, so therefore you'll still have to resort to using the physical brake pedal. But it's great to see that Nissan have incorporated this mode, because it means that when you're commuting in and around the city, it makes it for a little bit more of a more intuitive user experience. Now elsewhere, it's quite intriguing to see what Nissan have done with the transmission. Here you have got a combination of EV drive and of course the regular gears for the ICE part of the vehicle. Now here, when you pull away for the first time, it will always be in its EV portion, and here you have got 2 gears in total. Then when we move to its ICE based portion, you've got an additional 4 gears. Now you don't have the ability to adjust the gears, be it through the gear lever or of course via the omission of any sort of flappy paddles, but nonetheless the vehicle does it quite intelligently. In the eco mode it's a little bit lazy, but when you go on to its normal or of course its sport mode preset, it becomes a lot more responsive, and the same could be said about the steering input. Now ultimately what we're trying to convey over here is that the combination of electrified and its petrol portion can't really be felt when you're driving normally, although you might be able to feel when the secondary gear ratio kicks in, because there's a slight little delay when you put your foot down to the metal. Moving swiftly on, we get onto its suspension setup, and here it is a little bit surprising that Nissan have chosen for a little bit more of a stiffened setup. It's not exactly super stiff, don't get me wrong, but you will be able to feel some of the potholes, speed bumps or anomalies on the road. Similarly here, the body roll of the vehicle is noticeable, so therefore if you're going to be going at speed around country roads, you're certainly going to be feeling it, as we are doing right now. Ultimately here, it's not exactly the driver's car, and nor does its steering wheel give you that one-to-one input, which is no surprise, but just something that we thought we should highlight. Now this brings us on to comfort within the cabin, and here there is a little bit of tire noise that creeps in at higher speed levels, but is otherwise minimal. Now the vehicle will seat up to 5 individuals. The only thing worth considering over here is that there's no rear armrest. Now at the front, the vehicle has got manually adjustable seats and they become heated in the Techno trims. It's a shame not to see electronically adjustable seats with a memory function. Now as for headroom and legroom, it's a non-issue at the front of the cabin, whereby even if you're a tall individual, you won't have any sort of problems. The seats are also very accommodating and quite soft as well. However, at the rear, it is a little bit more limited, namely when it comes to the headroom. That said, if you are just under 6 foot, you won't have a problem, specifically given that Nissan has incorporated a near flat rear footwell design, which will definitely be appreciated for the rear middle occupants. Moving on, we get onto storage, and here it's actually surprisingly plentiful within the cabin. Here there is plenty of space within the door bins, both at the front and at the rear, to place a 500ml bottle and alongside smaller valuables. And there is also the center console area, where at the front there is a non-slip bay for a smartphone, and further down you've got a cup holder and a relatively small size compartment found within the center armrest. And we also love the fact that the glove box is really large, allowing you to store away certain valuables from prying eyes. Now of course, where storage is concerned, we have to talk about its boot, and here you have got 354 litres of capacity, and if you prop down the seats you've got 1237 litres. It is unfortunately down from its pure petrol variant, which offers 422 and 1305 litres respectively. This is unsurprisingly due to the battery pack that's placed towards the rear of the vehicle. Nonetheless, we think it should suffice for your weekly shops, and better still, it's very practical, whereby you have got a 60/40 rear split folding seat, a flat loading bay, and also a hatchback design, which makes it all that bit more convenient to access the rear of the vehicle. So moving on, we get onto technology within the cabin, and here it's actually pretty well equipped. You've got a responsive 8-inch infotainment system, which also supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The instrument cluster, unfortunately, is part digital. You do have a 7-inch display which can be customized, although we would have liked to see the dials also fully digitalized. Now, as for the audio system, the Techno trims and above offer a 10-speaker Bose system, making for a really pleasurable experience when you're on the move. Now, to connect up to the infotainment system, you do have Bluetooth, although we would suggest connecting up via an auxiliary jack in order to attain the best sort of sound quality, or alternatively via USB, where there's a singular Type A port at the front of the cabin, and the rear USB Type A port is useful for charging for your rear occupants. Elsewhere, it's great to see that Nissan has retained physical buttons, both on terms of the steering wheel and towards the dashboard. There is a few quick access buttons just underneath the 8-inch display, and then there is a further few which are used solely for your climate controls. These are certainly appreciated over the more modern trend of using capacitive or touch-based inputs. Now, while its interior uses a little bit more of a traditional, or should we say practical design, the exterior is very modern. Here we quite like the look of this compact crossover SUV. It looks stylish both at the front due to the design of the headlights and the grille, which is part covered in order to differentiate it from its ICE based alternative, and towards the rear it still looks quite stylish. Now at the side you do have 17-inch alloys that come fitted as standard, although in the Techno trims and above you have got 19-inch alloys, which certainly give it a little bit more of that sportier flair. Now we don't like, however, that the manufacturer has still used plastic side skirts, bumpers and wheel arches. This does detract a little bit from the overall design, but given the rest of the vehicle is still supremely stylish, it's something that we can definitely excuse. Now finally, in terms of its driver assistance systems, here there is a plethora of them built in via the Pro Pilot pack that can be found in the Techno trims and above. Here, in comparison to the N connector, you have got blind spot monitoring system, intelligent cruise control, which is also adaptive, and when combination with the steering assist takes away the stress when you're on the motorway. You've got lane departure and lane mitigation, emergency brake and forward collision, and also you do have rear cross traffic alert, which is handy when you're in a parking space. On that note, here the visibility at the front, side and at the rear of the vehicle is absolutely excellent, no issues whatsoever. Although we should note that depending on your seating position, you might find that the rear view mirror does hinder a little bit of your frontal vision. Now you do have front and rear parking sensors and a rear view camera in the Tecna trims, and therefore does take the stress away when you're doing a complex parking maneuver. So with all of that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict. And here, if you look at the incremental price differences between the regular Nissan Juke and the Nissan Juke Hybrid, at least when you're comparing like-for-like trim levels, here you'll find that the Juke Hybrid actually makes a lot of sense, not only in terms of improving fuel economy, but pretty much not compromising any of the other qualities and traits of the regular Juke, other than, of course, the boot capacity. Now, I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below as to what you make of the hybrid or electrified model. And if you've liked this video, definitely do drop a like, subscribe and hit that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.